Brothers and sister educators, let me just, I need to get this angst out. Just let me hear Black Lives Matter a few more times. Come on. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter. Thank you. Black Lives Matter. Thank you. Now, as educators, we would be remiss if we did not give you the history of black education in the United States. Yes, you did not just come for a rally, you also came for a lesson. You came for a lesson. So, what I give you is the African American history timeline from 1619 to 2008. In 1619, the first African American indentured servants arrived in the American colonies. Less than a decade later, the first slaves are brought into New Amsterdam, not against their will. Against their will. That's later New York City. And by 1690, every colony has slaves. 1739, the Stono Rebellion, one of the earliest slave revolts, occurred in Stono, South Carolina. 1793, Eli Whitney, the cotton gin, increases the need for slaves. 1808, Congress bans further importation of slaves. In 1831, in Boston, William Lloyd Garrison begins publication of the anti-slavery newspaper, The Liberator, and becomes a leading voice in the abolitionist movement. 1831 to 1861, approximately 75,000 slaves escaped to the north using the Underground Railroad. And then on the count of three, who was that fantastic woman that led us to the north because she knew something wasn't right? 1, 2, 3. Yes, she is one of our saviors. Thank you. In 1846, ex-slave Frederick Douglass publishes the anti-slavery North Star newspaper. 1848, Augustus St. Gaudens is born in Ireland. His family soon immigrates to the United States. 1849, Harriet Tubman escapes from slavery and becomes an instrumental leader of the Underground Railroad. Congress passes another Fugitive Slave Act, which mandates government participation in the capture of escaped slaves. Boston citizens, including some of the wealthiest, storm a federal courthouse in an attempt to free escaped Virginia slave Anthony Burns. 1857, that monumental case, the Dred Scott versus Sanford case. Congress does not have the right to ban slavery in the states. Slaves are not citizens, and we know that is one of the reasons why we are here today. 1860, Abraham Lincoln is elected president, angering the southern states. Oh well. 1861, the Civil War begins. 1863, Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation proclaims that all slaves in rebellious territories are forever free. 1863, Massachusetts 54th Regiment of African American troops led by Colonel Robert Gould Shaw marches out of Boston and on May 28th headed into combat. 1865, the Civil War ends. Lincoln is assassinated. 17-year-old Augustus St. Gaudens is so moved by the sight of Lincoln's body lying in a state that he views it twice. The 13th Amendment to the Constitution prohibiting slavery is ratified. The era of Reconstruction begins. We always know that someone knows how to bring us down when we get somewhere. 1866, the Black Codes are passed by all white legislators of the former Confederate states. Congress passes the Civil Rights Act, conferring citizenship on African Americans and granting them equal rights to whites. The Ku Klux Klan. The Ku Klux Klan is formed in Tennessee. 1868, the 14th Amendment is ratified, defining citizenship. This overturns the Dred Scott decision in 1870. The 15th Amendment is ratified, giving African Americans the right to vote. 1877, the era of Reconstruction ends. A deal is made with Southern Democratic leaders which make Rutherford B. Hayes president in exchange for the withdrawal of federal troops from the South and put an end to the effort to protect the civil rights of African Americans. Thousands of African Americans migrate out of the South to escape oppression in 1879. 1881, Tennessee passes the first of the Jim Crow segregation laws, segregating state railroads. Similar laws are passed over the next 15 years throughout the southern states. 1887, Augustus St. Gaudens unveils the standing Lincoln statue in Lincoln Park, Chicago. 1896, Plessy v. Ferguson. The Plessy v. Ferguson case, racial segregation is ruled constitutional by the Supreme Court. The Jim Crow separate but equal laws begin, barring African Americans from equal access to public facilities. 1897, Augustus St. Gaudens unveils the Shaw Memorial in Boston Common. 1954, Brown versus Board of Education case strikes down segregation as unconstitutional. In 1955, in Montgomery, Alabama, Rosa Parks is arrested for breaking a city ordinance by refusing to give up her seat on a public bus to a white man. This defiant act gives initial momentum to the Civil Rights movement. In 1957, Martin Luther King and others set up the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, a leading engine of the Civil Rights movement. 1964, the Civil Rights Act is signed, prohibiting discrimination of all kinds. 1965, the Voting Rights Act is passed, outlawing the practices used in the South to disenfranchise African American voters. 1967, Edward W. Brooke becomes the first African American U.S. Senator since Reconstruction. He served 2 terms as a senator from Massachusetts. 1968, Martin Luther King Jr. is assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. And this skips all the way to 2008, when Barack Obama my president, was the first African American elected. That's the end of our history lesson today. Now, I would like to introduce to you one of our angels of equity, one of the leaders of the Buffalo Board of Education, the leader of the Buffalo Board of Education, the Honorable Sharon Cochran.